So as we know, the Houston Rockets are the most unique team in the NBA for a couple reasons. I mean, they have the most extreme style of play in NBA history, I think, with the only three-pointers or layups mentality, with the frenetic pace they play at, and the super micro ball with nobody over 6'8" in their lineup. And of course, they're home to two of the most ball-dominant players in NBA history, and a coach who could care less about defense. So the question is, how far will this small ball take the Houston Rockets? But before we get into this, make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, follow our Instagram at just.d.facts, and let's get straight into it. So the Rockets decided to go all out on their small ball experiment by trading Clint Capella on February 5th, obviously the main beneficiary being Russell Westbrook. In the 11 games since the Capella trade, Russ has averaged 32 points, 5.5 assists, 8 rebounds on 54% shooting from the field and 38% from 3, including huge performances when he had 41 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists versus the Lakers, and 41 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists versus the Celtics. Obviously, there's no more big man clogging the paint for Russ, so he can have relentless drives at the paint. And of course, with Capella being gone, that adds an extra shooter on the court. With that being said, let me tell you what Houston must do to compete for an NBA championship this year. First and most importantly, the Rockets have a chance if and only if the defense and the rebounding are good enough. Now with Capella gone, they lose that rim protector that most teams have. And they also lose 14 rebounds a game from Capella. But even with Capella, the Rockets defense was not good in the first place. Right now, they're in the middle of the road when it comes to defense, ranking 16th in defensive rating. And that alone will not get the job done for the Rockets. Over the past 20 years, only 2 teams have won the NBA title being outside the top 10 in defensive rating. Can you guess those 2 teams? The 01 Lakers and the 2018 Warriors. So obviously those 2 teams are all-time great teams, so they didn't really need to be that great on defense. And come on, let's just face it, those 2 teams were just so much more dominant than the rest of the league. But from that stat alone, it seems like Houston has no chance of winning the title. So the Rockets are going to need to come up with a game plan that most teams, if not all teams, cannot match. On the defensive end, they need to get a lot of steals and deflections, getting in the passing lanes. They need to be running around all over the place on the defensive end. And I think that's going to take up a lot of energy to the point where the offense isn't that great, or isn't as great as they're accustomed to being. I think for the defense to be as good as they can possibly be, it starts on the offensive end for Houston. They need to make a lot of shots. They need to make a lot of threes because let's just be honest, they are going to give up a lot of points in the paint. But guess what? Threes are greater than twos, and if Houston can hit enough threes, maybe they can hang in there. When it comes to rebounding, the Rockets sit 14th overall, but they are bottom 5 in offensive rebounds given up, and they're in the bottom 3 in opponents rebounding. So yes, it's inevitable that the Rockets are going to give up a lot of rebounds and a lot of offensive rebounds. So they are going to need an extra group effort to get a job done on the boards. And we know Russ is a great rebounding guard, so maybe he can get his 8 rebounds right now up to 10. Maybe Harden can get anywhere from 5 to 7 rebounds. He's a pretty good rebounder. Covington and PJ Tucker, they probably need at least 8 rebounds. But it almost doesn't matter who the Rockets go up against because they will give up a lot of offensive rebounds. Potential teams looking like the Jazz with Rudy Gobert, obviously Jokic with the Nuggets, obviously AD and JaVale McGee with the Lakers, Steven Adams with the Thunder. So it's inevitable that the Rockets will have rebounding problems for sure, but can they at least not get killed on the boards? The next thing the Rockets must do to really compete this year is that Russell Westbrook needs to stay disciplined. Another reason why Russ has been so good this season is because he's taken the three-pointer out of his game for the most part. In the first 42 games of this season, Russ took 4.2 three-point attempts and shot a measly 23%. But after the trade with Capella, he cut those three-point attempts in half, only shooting about 2.4 attempts per game, but now he's shooting 39% from 3. Cutting down those threes in half was great for Russ, but will he stay disciplined throughout the postseason? We all know that Russell Westbrook's one of the more confident players in the league, and even though he's shooting like 27% from 3 this season, he will still take three-point shots, but will he lessen it as much as possible? Especially how Russ is being defended now where they're putting bigs on him. As you saw in the Lakers game, Anthony Davis was guarding Russ for the most of the game. As you saw in the Jazz game, Rudy Gobert was guarding Russ most of the game. At least when it's inside the three-point line. When Russ is on the perimeter, they will give him all the cushion in the world to shoot. And as we've seen in the past, Russell Westbrook has been baited into shooting threes, and that has not worked out well for him. I think Russ really needs to find his bread and butter at the mid-range. Before the trade, Russ was shooting 40% from mid-range, which is about league average. But after the trade, Russ has absolutely been on a tear, shooting 49% from the mid-range. For reference, CP3 is probably the best mid-range shooter in the game, right? And he's shooting 52% from mid-range this season. So I don't really expect Russ to maintain a 49% from mid-range. But if Russ can at least be 45, 46% from mid-range, I think the Rockets have a good shot. And as we know, Russ is an absolute terror in the paint. Third in points per game this season in the paint. And earlier in the season, he had 234 points in the paint in a 10-game stretch. That is absolutely ridiculous from a guard. So Russ just needs to keep attacking, stay disciplined for shooting the 3-ball, and hit the mid-range on a consistent basis. Now, if those two things I just mentioned are achieved, if the defensive rebounding can be good enough, and if Russ can be good enough, I think it'll come down to James Harden being good enough under pressure. Harden is known as a choker. He's known to have outstanding regular seasons followed by playoff disappointments. James Harden seems to play below his standards in pivotal games and moments. 2017 versus the Spurs, Game 6, no Kawhi Leonard. The Rockets lost by 39 points at home. Harden shot 2 of 11, 10 points, 6 turnovers, and he fouled out. And did I mention there was no Kawhi Leonard on the court? 2018 versus the Warriors, as we all know, Game 7, no Chris Paul, but they're at home. James Harden had a good second half, scoring 16 points, going 7 for 14, but he was a negative 22 in the plus-minus, and failed to take control in the fourth quarter where they absolutely needed him most. As we know, the Rockets missed 27 straight three-pointers in a row, and at that point, it's like, James Harden, where you at? And he doesn't show up. In 2019 versus the Warriors, Game 1, the Rockets have a chance to win the game at Golden State. Harden doesn't decide to actually try to make the three-point shot, but instead tries to go under Draymond Green's legs and draw a foul, which he doesn't draw a foul, and the Rockets end up losing Game 1. Now, in Game 6 of that series, he failed to take advantage, especially in the second half. No Kevin Durant at home, Game 6. Curry scores 33 points in the second half after scoring 0 in the first half. While James Harden was almost nowhere to be found in those final moments, including having 4 turnovers in the fourth quarter alone. That's absolutely horrible. Not to mention James Harden's sporadic 2 for 18 shooting games, 5 for 21 shooting games, and 3 for 20 shooting games. And crazy fact to throw in there, the Rockets actually won all 3 of those games. But obviously you wouldn't want James Harden playing like that, even if they are winning. So all in all, James Harden just needs to come up clutch when it matters most. Obviously, he's a top 3 player in the regular season, but when it comes to the postseason, he might not even be a top 10 player, or at least play like one. I know it seems like I was hating on James Harden just then, but I really do want to see James Harden win a ring. As y'all know, Russell Westbrook's my favorite player. And being an OKC fan for the previous 9 years, I got a soft spot in my heart for James Harden, so I really do want to see him win a title. He's one of the most prolific scorers in NBA history, as we all know. But I do not want all of that to go to waste due to how he performs in crunch time. But with that being said, what do you think the number one thing the Rockets need to do to win a title this year? Like I said with that last video about Philly, I can see the Rockets losing in the first round, and I can see the Rockets possibly going to the NBA Finals. If James Harden and Russell Westbrook don't win a ring this year, do y'all think that they'll ever win a ring? But with that being said, my name is Jimmy from Just the Facts. Make sure to follow our Instagram at just.the.facts. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'm out. Peace.